Hey guys, Eric Cummings here from the Cummings Law Firm. I wanted to get to everyone. I wanted to talk about the CARES Act, the new legislation that recently came into play for business owners. So to give you a fast forward a little bit, what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing a number of different videos for business owners, employees, and for some lenders that are going to be tied into all of this. This first video, again, this is about the CARES Act. It's about Section 7A specifically and how it relates to business owners paying certain expenses through using loans that you're going to be getting through your certified lenders that are certified. They're lending institutions that have been certified through the SBA, the United States SBA program, Small Business Association, Small Business Act. So let's just jump into it real quick, okay? So this first section, again, this is Section 7A of the SBA, and it was enacted on March 27th. The Coronavirus Aid Relief Economic Security Act is the long name of it, but you're going to hear everybody refer to it as the CARES Act. What it does is lending institutions are going to be acting on behalf of your local SBA agencies, and those lending institutions are going to be giving us what they call covered loans. So what's a covered loan? A covered loan is going to be a loan that is provided to a business owner between February 15th and June 30th. That time period is important. We're going to put a thumbtack in that, okay? So again, February 15th to June 30th, that's considered the covered period, okay? The covered period is going to come into play later. So the next question that I had is who qualifies? What type of businesses are going to get it as it relates to these covered loans? These covered loans are going to be considered. They're pressed through. They're expanded, and the SBA regulations are temporarily suspended for businesses that employ individuals that have less than 500 employees. Right. So in my area anyway, that's going to be most of the local businesses that are going to qualify for that. So that's good. It is a side note here. Anybody who happens to be an independent contractor or happens to be a sole proprietor, right? That means that you don't have your business set up as an entity, as a corporation, as an LLC, as a partnership, obviously. You still qualify for this, okay? So this is an important side note. Whenever I was writing this down, this is something that I underlined. I paid a lot of attention to it because as you're going to see when we go forward here, some of the covered costs that we might want to get reimbursed later, okay? One of those happens to be an independent contractor. An independent contractor is going to qualify as a business owner who is going to be able to apply for these loans. So planning ahead, okay, since the independent contractor, so I'm talking about my accountants, I'm talking about maybe my IT people, those individuals that I pay on a monthly basis or even randomly as an independent contractor. If I pay them under the terms of this covered loan, I'm not going to be able to get reimbursed back that money for those costs that are associated with those payments during the covered period. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to go to my independent contractors and I'm going to say, hey, just as a side note, I want to keep you guys here. I want to keep using your services. I don't want your business to fall down, obviously, just for a number of different reasons. But I want to know whether that independent contractor is going to be applying for this type of loan themselves. Because if they apply for the loan, they're going to qualify. They're going to get the money that they otherwise would have been getting from me every month. I can save my costs and not pay them during the covered period because I know that they're being covered through the covered loan, right? So communicate with your independent contractors on this so that you're not going to be spending resources, you're not going to be spending your liquidity on something that your independent contractor otherwise could have been receiving income from, okay? Okay, so that was a hefty side note, but it was an important one nonetheless. As it relates to how much money you're entitled to as a business owner, it's up to $10 million, and then there's a very specific formula that relates to your overhead costs and the loss that you may have suffered, whether you're in an essential business that's just lost revenue because of flow of activity or lack of flow, versus a non-essential business who by governor's order has been shut down and didn't have the ability to be mobile during this time period. So what you're going to be doing is is you're going to be taking, whenever you get your application in your packet, whether you get it from the SBA or you get it from the certified SBA lender, when you get that packet, I filled out the application. While I was busy filling out the paperwork, I handed a portion of that packet to my accountant and that firm. Okay, if you have someone who does your in-house payroll and your in-house bill pay, give it to them, have them fill it out. You're going to approve it whenever it's done, but go ahead and hand that off, right? So the formula will tell how much you're entitled to receive during the covered period, okay? What is covered? This was a big deal to me, right? Because with my law firm, with this law firm, and for our area, we have a lot of overhead costs. There's some small practices, maybe they have one receptionist, one employee, one attorney, and their overhead cost is going to be marginal. Some of the larger firms, and some of the medium-sized firms like our firm, there's a lot of overhead costs, okay? So what overhead cost is going to be covered every month? The overhead cost relates to payroll costs. It specifically relates to healthcare premiums. It relates to employee salaries. It relates to interest on mortgages. It relates to rent. It relates to utilities. And then any debt that was acquired prior to the coverage period. So remember, the coverage period began on February 15th. Any debt that I took on prior to that time period, that can also be covered. Okay? So then when you fill out this application as a business owner, what does that mean as far as certifications, right? There's typically a bunch of red tape whenever you're talking about any type of lending that has to be jumped through. The red tape here, for the most part, is completely gone. What happens is you actually sign a good faith certification, essentially that the money, number one, is needed as a result of the COVID-19 virus outbreak, and number two, that it's going to be used to pay the overhead costs associated with the continued operation of your business, okay? So as a thumbtack in this, right, as a business owner, the one thing I'm taking from it is that I'm going to be very, very, very accountable, right? We are, right, for any lending arrangement, you're going to be accountable, but this doesn't have a personal guarantee. This doesn't have all these other strings attached to it. It doesn't have collateral. I'll talk about that as we wrap. But here's the thing. I am personally, for example, I'm setting up with my lending institution that I customarily use for my business activity. I'm setting up a separate account. I'm going to have an account that's earmarked specifically for this government money for when I receive it. I'm going to be making payments in and out. It's all going to be separate so that whenever time comes for forgiveness, which we'll talk about here in the next video, and I'll mention at the end a little bit, when we get to the forgiveness part of this, I want it to be separate and distinct from my existing account that I customarily use for the payment of my overhead costs associated with operating my business. Okay, so thumbtack that, right? It has to stay separate and apart. The SBA has relaxed a lot of its requirements, right? So typically, whenever you walk into an SBA, one thing you have to do is you have to say, look, I went to all the local lenders and I was denied, right? You're my last resort. So now I'm here, hat in hand to the SBA. That's gone. You don't have to do that anymore, right? Also, there's no personal guarantees. I mentioned that. There's not going to be any collateral taken on these. That's a very big deal. When the lender gets into this transaction with you, the maximum interest rate is 4% that they're allowed to charge. But here's the deal. So this is good. During the covered period, right? So until June 30th, they're not allowed to have any costs, interest, fees, anything that are attributed to this loan. They're not allowed to collect any of it, right? So that's a good thing. After that, there's an extended deferment that you're allowed to take advantage of as well. But we'll talk about that later when we get into the forgiveness. The forgiveness of the loan is going to be the next video, and that's basically the summary for this. I'll add this though, when we're getting into forgiveness, and it ties into this because when you get that money, right, as a business owner, you're going to get that money. You're feeling the stress, you're feeling the anxiety. You've kept all, like me, I've kept all my employees. It's hard. We're working remotely, and it's a very, very difficult time right now. But the anxiety level is high, right? And everybody's talking negative. You're going to stay positive. You're going to be organized. You're going to make a plan. Part of the plan is going to be that you're going to separate those overhead costs that are going to be approved, okay? Those items that are approved under the covered loan, the stuff that I talked about, payroll costs, health insurance, that whole list of stuff that I went through, okay? You're going to separate that. You're going to be held accountable with a good faith certification. You're not going to take out too much money that's going to overextend you, okay? You're not going to do that. You're going to take out what the formula says that you should take out, and you're going to use it to pay your overhead costs. You're going to use a separate account to keep everything flowing in and out, and it's going to be nice and neat, okay? That's the type of thing we're talking about, because when the time comes for the forgiveness, if you truly want to take advantage of the forgiveness, you're going to have to pay attention to this stuff, because what could happen is if I take out the max $10 million and I go and spend all this and all that, and some of the things that I spend happen to be spent on things that are not the covered items, then I'm not going to get those payments. Those are not going to be forgiven. If I spend outside of the covered period, whatever I spend outside the covered period is not going to be forgiven. Now, I'm going to take a guess and say that over time, because this law, since last Friday, so 3 days ago, this law has changed 3 times. There's been different requirements added and everything. I'm going to take a guess and say that covered period is going to extend a couple months going forward. I could be wrong. But so the cost has to be incurred during the covered period in order to be eligible for the forgiveness. So anyway, that's that. Click like, click share, please. People need to know about this. Cummings Law Firm. This is free information. This is big time stuff. I spent the last 3 days digging through this legislation. I have a huge amount of notes on it, stars, underlines, everything you can think of. And I'm ready to break it down into these small fractional videos for everyone and give this out, hoping that everyone sends it to all the business owners. Because even if you don't own a business, if you're an employee and but here's the deal, if you're an employee, you have an employer. If your employer has this information, it could save you your job, okay? There's a whole other section about workers' comp. If you've already been laid off, we're going to deal with that too, and we're going to tell you some good news on that. So anyway, click like, click share. As always, you can go to our website, check us out, www.clfdlaw.com, and just post any questions that you have. Remember that this is, like I said, this is the information that I have in front of me right now. I have to throw out there, I'm required that here's my disclaimer, right? So this is not legal advice. Building a team of your accountants with your local lender, everything. Call us. I can help you as an attorney with the attorney hat on. But this law changes. This is the information that I'm presenting to you right now for free, trying to get you going the right direction. So as always, we appreciate the attention. We appreciate it because it's an opportunity to help people do good business and to help people just like you, just like me, get through all this that we're having to endure together. So thank you guys again, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.